Welcome back to the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Watkins, and if you love college football, you're definitely in the right place. So before you forget, smash that red subscriber button, like our videos, and don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss one moment of the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. Folks, I'd like everybody to welcome back the coach, Phillip Roybal, along with our guests for tonight, Jay Smith of Unfair Sports and Ty Hayes from Around the Table Sports. We're going to jump into conference realignment as usual. James is already ready to rock and roll on this stuff. And talk a little bit about the ACC has thrown their kind of hat into the ring on that with your two power schools, Florida State and Clemson. Already you have the Pac-12 looking more and more to me every day like it's on its way to not being a conference anymore. But guys, welcome to the show. Appreciate everybody joining tonight. Coach, how's everything going tonight?
Hey, life is good. If it's any better, I think something was wrong.
All right. Well, guys, just starting off, obviously yesterday, Clemson kind of echoed what was said out of Florida State on Friday after their meeting of their regents, and they were talking about obviously that the revenue share, they either needed to raise their revenue share from the ACC or they were going to have to possibly get a buyout or something like that to where they could get out of it. Otherwise, are they able to remain competitive with the rest of the country when you have two conferences in the Big Ten and SEC whose revenue share is going to raise tremendously coming up, starting actually this year in the Big Ten, next year in the SEC. I think they were mostly at Florida State talking about a $30 million or so discrepancy. And obviously there's not a whole lot of ways to keep up that way. Coach, what would you think would be the biggest obviously that's a big gap between these big schools. Do you think that that's something that would keep them from being able to keep up, or how long would they have until they had to be making that kind of money?
And this whole thing is just, it's completely interesting how it's blowing up, and it started several years ago, and it's just growing insurmountably. Right. And I tell you what, I think it's going to just continue. Who can keep up with the Joneses? At the end of the day, it's just going to keep growing, guys, and it's going to continue to change teams and conferences, and I'm waiting to see at what point all this explodes, because it's definitely headed that direction. Hell, are you just going to have one super conference? And I don't know, guys. I look at it daily and I'm thinking, what in the hell is going on? And you guys have been in this looking at it for years now. And so it's going crazy. That's all I can say. I don't know. I don't have any answers.
Yeah. And obviously, Jay, jump in. Let me know what you're thinking about this. Obviously with the Pac-12, it's looking more and more. We've been talking about this anyway, but what does this mean? Would you say that Clemson and Florida State, and I'll have you answer the same thing there, Ty, would it be viable to jump out at $120 million buyout? Is that something that you could see one of these teams doing or both of these teams doing is it worth doing that?
So, reading up on this Clemson, Florida State debacle and everything that's going down, it makes zero sense for them to pay the $120 million to leave, because the biggest problem they have is that if they make any revenue, it goes to the ACC anyway. They signed that right over, so there's nothing they can do to bring in additional revenue whatsoever for the program as far as television rights go, because they signed away all their rights whenever they made that big deal with ESPN. So it goes 20 years out. So, like, to me, the biggest issue I saw with the contract is that you should have put yourself an opt-out clause somewhere in the middle, because you know the rival conferences were going to have renegotiation moments. And of course, ESPN is going to sign up for a 20-year deal with the conference. Why not? They're going to
Why
get two
wouldn't
of the
you?
most premier basketball programs in the country. And so because of that, if anything, that makes it all but worth it, because people will sit there and watch Duke and North Carolina even if they suck, and Wake Forest. And so because of that, you take advantage of the opportunity to have them on your TV screens, especially during the deadest times of the year after the Super Bowl. So to me, they made the mistake going in that direction, but overall, there's no way they can get out that contract. You're not paying 120 million and then giving up all your TV revenue,
and then giving
It's
up your
it's not
revenue because you can't
sustainable
make it
long-term.
up.
It's not
Right. You
sustainable
can't
long
make-
term. And no other conference is going to subsidize that, period. Like, I mean, even the SEC will be willing to bring them in, but they're not going to subsidize that. They're going to be like, I mean, I was stupid for signing that contract, bro. The most we can do is give you what we can, but we're not going to lose money, and that's going to make it even worse. They would have to go independent and just pray to the gods that the contract ends soon.
Well, it's crazy because if you listen to them talk, they're not operating under that assumption. Like, they are straight up saying, if I'm not mistaken, Alford straight up said, why wouldn't we pay the 120 mil when SEC is making 30 million more than us per year? So I know what they signed, but they're operating for whatever reason under the assumption that they're going to be able to eat that. And essentially they're looking at it as saying, like, okay, well, we're making $30 million a year. If they're making $60 or $60 million a year over the course of 4 years, not only will we have came out equal, we would have paid our exit fees, and then we'll be able to exponentially increase the amount of money we make. But that's all hinging on that verbiage in the contract, Jay. And that's the thing. I don't understand for the life of me, first off, signing a 20-year deal when you are the product. And I get it. ESPN is the distributor, right? And it's just like you have to have the distributor if you are the product. But at the end of the day, you're the product. And you came to the debate table as if you had zero, zilch, nada leverage. You're Clemson and Florida State in the ACC. You have the basketball schools in there. I get it. You will never hold the cards against the TV media rights, but to walk in here like you hold no leverage and sign a 20-year deal when it is so obvious when you look around the landscape of college football and things are changing. That's just wild to me from like a contractual standpoint. Now, if in a perfect world they could get out of the ACC, you should. And it's for the reason I said, guys, I'm just going to throw out some numbers here. Whenever the pandemic happened, these are some numbers. The Big Ten distributed $48.7 million per team. The SEC, $54.6 million per team that season. The ACC was $36 million per team. So they're almost $20 million less during the pandemic, not to mention the massive media conglomerate deals they just signed. So look, the ACC, FSU, Clemson, Jay, I completely agree with you. They're stuck. Like, I'm confused with that language in the contract, why they're operating under the assumption that this is such a easy thing to do, to just hop up out of this and to be able to cover this whenever they have that verbiage in there. Maybe, I mean, inevitably they know something I don't know. One, I'm not all that smart. Two, they have the contract. So, like, I don't know. I'm super interested to see how this all works out for FSU, Clemson, and the ACC in general.
The thing that I've got is at what point does it become prohibitive for ESPN though? I mean, your product is bound to go away as far as competitive is, and I mean they own both of these. I mean, is there not some kind of legal avenue that you would see the ACC taking in view, I mean, of being able to sue their way out of it or some way because of the fact that you own both of these? There's got to be some kind of, I mean, to me, I feel like this is one of those deals where it's like essentially, I mean, they own both of them. They've put one so far out ahead that, I mean, they're going to redo the contract with the SEC before they have to redo the one with the ACC. Now, obviously, I've been under the assumption, at least the last few weeks, and maybe I'm wrong, that at some point, if you're ESPN, your own product is going to suffer to the point that who the hell's going to watch it? You know, Do you not need to do something to, help the ACC in some way?
Well, I mean, if you really think about it, go and looking at the TV contracts that's out there, man, they've got the SEC, so they're fine. This is a cheap way to be in college basketball. If you really think about the ACC angle, this is Duke in North Carolina. These are the blue bloods that will be on television that people are going to watch. You can make a lot more money off of the basketball side for the most part than you do football. Now, granted, football, of course, you always make more money off of, but they've already got the SEC. They're good. They've got portions of the Big 12. They've got
so they're willing to kill
the
these universities' programs. In other words.
Well, this is me and Ty talked about this a few times, even on his stream. This is the one thing you got to also consider in all of this. It's inventory. Your problem is inventory. They can have the premier games from the ACC play at certain times, and then all of the premier games from the other conferences they've got hold of, and the ACC is going to be very minuscule in comparison to everybody else. Pac-12, ACC. Ask yourself this question. What marquee games on either side on the football side would you replace a Big 12 or SEC major matchup? OU, Texas, Bama, Tennessee, Bama, LSU, Georgia, Tennessee, any of those, Georgia, Florida, any of those games. What ACC games or Pac-12 games would you replace those games with? You can't name any because none of those teams have premier fan bases to make you get the eyeballs you would get out of a Georgia, Florida, or something like that.
I don't know. Clemson, I mean, obviously, at
Clemson,
the moment,
Florida State's the one that I threw out there.
Correct.
That's your closest, but like you're also you're hinging on Florida State continuing the turnaround with Norvell. Whereas, like, if we look at it right now, you talk about the game, Ohio State, Michigan. You know what I mean? Like that.
Right.
That's about as big. They might cancel an NFL game for that.
For that, exactly. Oh, you Texas. That would even when both teams aren't that great. The rivalries are too big in certain games for the ACC to even be able to take over. Like, I'm looking at the ACC and trying to figure out what their actual rivalries are.
Right.
Basketball.
Right. Well,
right.
Yeah,
That's where
definitely
they have
basketball.
the massive rivalries is basketball.
And I'm talking football though. That's of course this is what all this of course hinging on. But you're right, Ty. Basketball they haven't, which is why ESPN locked them up when they could. They got this 12-year deal done, and then they extended it immediately to make it 20 because they knew we lock y'all in for cheap. Everybody else is asking for more money. We don't have the inventory to be able to show you on television, and nobody else wants to take the risk with the ACC in bringing them in. Like, I mean, CBS and all of them could try, but they're just like, nah, we good. We don't want to deal with that. We prefer to have the premier NFL as well as SEC games. And a lot of them just decided that that's not worth the hassle, which is kind of wild, but kind of telling at the same time.
But I also feel like part of this is, I mean, you're talking about two programs in Clemson and Florida State. Now, their rivalry, I know it's picked up over the last 10, 15 years. And the truth of it is they've actually combined for 24 of the last 32 conference titles. So if there's a rivalry within the conference, it's those two. Miami, obviously, you would think they're going to go in there as well, and they're going to have some money from their boosters. I mean, it's hard for me to picture college football without these three brands mattering. It really is. And it just, I don't know. It just seems to me like if you're ESPN, you don't really gain anything. But and I get what you're saying as far as like inventory is concerned, but I don't see what you gain by basically destroying three. I mean, on the blue blood, they're kind of those blue blood type programs. Obviously Clemson's got a ways to go before they get to that, but they've won recently and they've got a real program. And Florida State has been a real program for a long time. They're obviously on their way back. Miami, same thing. But I mean, we're talking about, this is college football history we're talking about. And I mean, what do you gain from it if you're ESPN? I don't get it.
Well, if I may, Coach pointed it out earlier. Coach, when you said you felt like we were heading towards a massive one conference thing, ironically, one of the things that the ACC was talking about, there was very interesting verbiage in the interview. And they kept saying the big two. meaning they view this long term as a 2-conference thing, the Big Two, the Big Ten,
Right.
and the SEC. So, Coach, you're 100% right. That's where the thinking is.
Hey, and then Ty, and then Notre Dame.
I can't wait for Notre Dame to get in a conference. That's just whatever conference they get in. It's going to. I mean, you talk about instant intrigue wherever they go. I can't wait if that ever happens.
I think
That'd
the
be
SEC would
awesome.
love to pull that off just to piss everybody off. You know, it would piss
Honestly, that'd be
everybody off.
so good. So good. Wherever they go, I'm 100% down for it. I just think it'd be so awesome. But point being, I think that it's to ESPN, it's less about I don't think they look at it as they're destroying. I think they look at it as they're accelerating the creation of something new.
And I agree with you. I think I truly believe that's where it's headed.
Yeah. All signs point to it. All signs point to it.
If the ACC, if I may, was smart, the one thing they should do is find a way to get Notre Dame, and then try to negotiate a deal with NBC in there also.
Ooh, I like it.
ESPN will make a deal with you, but we also want to be able to work with NBC because we're going to bring in Notre Dame. And I bet you ESPN will be willing to renegotiate, and the money will probably be a lot bigger by doing that. ESPN can snatch up the basketball side, and then the ACC can do most of the stuff with NBC, and boom. Walk yourself away.
I agree.
If there's a hypothetical that makes sense, that's it. Besides that, there's so many components that we have to try to figure out that ACC put themselves.
Well, we haven't even spoken about obviously the Big 12 and the Pac-12 right now. Now, obviously, the Pac-12 is kind of on its way. I mean, I've been saying this for weeks, is that I feel like it's dead. It's dead conference walking. You know, and it's been obviously you had Larry Scott making misstep after misstep for years in the conference, but it's not like they replaced the guy with the world's smartest individual, because Kliavkoff hasn't made a single move that should have been made. I mean, that was the right move, I should say. You know, when he had an opportunity to kill the Big 12 and take those 4 schools, you know, at least 4 schools, what do? They turn their nose up at it. Then, you know, then it turns around. They bring in the 4 schools, the non-Power 5 schools to try to stabilize, and then try to do a merger. What do? They freaking turn their nose up at it again. Then he misses his window, and they had their own window to negotiate their deal. They walk out without one, turn down the $30 million that they ended up giving to the Big 12 when they jumped in, renegotiated early, and now there's nothing left. And what I mean, even if you come up with Ion or whoever the hell you think you're going to get, how does this not
it's lost
an
at this
all
point.
streaming? Yeah,
all streaming.
Is there any way? I mean, you know, again, we're about to see the end of college football as we know it, and I think that people have been saying this for years now, but now it's here.
I think if Apple jumps into it, that's just the tip of the iceberg for them in finding a way to jump into the bigger deals. The good thing is Apple's got bread and they have no problem with spending it. So if the Pac-12 is smart, it's finding a way to just let Apple take over. But the thing that sucks is that it's not going to be as lucrative a deal as they want, because they just lost the largest market. Like when you're losing Los Angeles, I mean, what are we talking about? Your eyeballs are gone, especially if those teams are good. Cal's never good. Neither is Stanford anymore. Hell, do they have a head coach yet? That's kind of like the big thing to really think about when it comes to that area. Yeah. All you've got is Oregon, and as much as we enjoy Oregon and all the beautiful jerseys and stuff, and the fact that Nike,
you give Michael Penix some love.
Shoes,
you give Michael Penix some love.
I love Washington.
There you go.
And Michael Penix, and I have nothing but love for them. But neither one of them are national brands that people really care about.
You're right. I hate to admit it. You're right.
I think that Oregon is one that the kids care about. Oregon is one that the kids care about, though.
They're the ones that the athletes care about.
Correct.
But kids ain't watching them on TV.
But that's
ain't
true.
Nobody really
that's
watching
true.
Oregon like that. They're there. They exist as a medium that we enjoy, because they're more so. We enjoy the idea of Oregon more so than we actually enjoy Oregon itself. You see what I'm saying? Like if you can get like some of these blue bloods to do the jersey things that they do, hell yeah,
sure.
We're all over it. We would all over those teams too, but then we'd also be more desirable of them at the same time. That's the problem with Oregon. It's just they're cool. Yeah. They're a cool idea.
Sure.
Where do you go?
Well,
from
and they
there?
came from nowhere. I mean, once they got big, I don't know that I knew who
Chip
they
Kelly
were
era,
at that
man.
point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Chip Kelly era, man. And that was their brand was jerseys. It's like Maryland. Remember when Maryland tried the same thing with Under Armour and tried to do all the random jerseys and it was just not the
Yeah.
same? It's like we all looked at it like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool, but can you
It's
get
already
to
been
a
done.
playoff or
It's like
can you
everybody
get to a
changing the
BCS?
color of the turf at their stadiums and stuff now because Boise
Right,
did it.
The
Nobody
gimmick just
cares.
gets old so
Yeah.
fast. But the only thing for Oregon is their gimmick doesn't get old. We love the idea of them. We're just not big on them in general. We don't want to. We'll date them. I don't think we'll marry them.
Right. Well, and I think that obviously when it comes down to it, okay, so here's the deal. Obviously, with me, I'm thinking, and you guys jump in here at any point. Is there a viable option, at least for now, where you could see some kind of merger between whether it be the ACC, I know that obviously you can't just get out there, but would the ACC and Big 12 get involved in that? Obviously, adding in some of these Pac-12 teams. If you do some of that, now you have an opportunity to kind of, instead of making it a Big 2, you could have it be a Big 3 because you would have. I would tell you that with Coach Prime, obviously he's going to move them. He's moving the needle here. Everybody wants to see him succeed. I think that he's obviously, he's getting the recruits in there. You can't even imagine everything that he's done as far as marketing's concerned. That he's done stuff that they couldn't do in 20 years' time.
They've sold more tickets to the spring game than when they had it open for 7 years straight when you could just walk in. They already have more spots gone than when it was free and you combined it for 7 years.
So there is value there. There's got to be some.
Yes.
I mean, to me, their value is there to bring all 6. And even if it's for a short period when it comes to Oregon and Washington, and we talked about this on your show last week, Ty, even if it's for a short period when you're talking Oregon and Washington, because I think that obviously the Big Ten is not done. I don't think they want to leave USC and UCLA out on an island like that. I don't. I just really don't. And, again, disagree. Feel free to jump in and disagree with me, but I don't see them doing that. And obviously the money is more in favor of the Big Ten at the moment. So you could see culturally they're probably going to fit better out there as well. That's where I see Stanford and Cal going, if anywhere, obviously over the AAU stuff. Not that anybody cares about Stanford and Cal at this point.
Right.
But
academically, that does make sense. I think the biggest problem, if I may, you're running into, and I've talked to a few people about this, is that when you get that large, the logistical nightmare of trying to get everything organized to where your schedules align, and not just football, but basketball, swimming, soccer, baseball, all these random other sports, you're running into nothing but problems. And I think honestly, that's the reason why the Big Ten hasn't approached Oregon or Washington. Why they kind of was like, we cool, especially with Stanford and Cal. Stanford and Cal will be perfect for them academically because it lines up exactly what the Big Ten wants. We're good in football, and we're also big time in academics.
No, you just got to live life like me. You worry about the college football, and everything else will fall into place. Everything else will fall into place.
And having that LA market helped them so immensely with their negotiations on their latest TV contract. So we would gladly figure it out with UCLA and USC. And UCLA even said it. This gets them out of a deficit that they've been dealing with, similar to Maryland, over the years because football costs so much darn money to operate. Your problem you're going to see with all of this is adding that many teams is that you got to figure out how to get bigger TV contracts to really divvy up the pies better. And nobody's going to, at a certain point, we're going to see some of these networks balk. They're going to say, we don't have the inventory to handle all of these teams at the level y'all want.
Well, that's where your streaming comes in. I don't know where that's viable right today. I think that hurts a program. I think it hurts the Pac-12 right now. If you're the SEC and you want to start messing with some of your second tier stuff like that, where you're streaming that all the time, your non-tier 1 games, that's fine. You can afford to do that because you are able, but when you are a conference that, already it has a problem with visibility because of the time zone you're in, how in the world can you make that work with almost all streaming or even more than half streaming is what I keep hearing. I don't see that they're going to – ESPN doesn't want anything to do with their tier one. I think they might get 1 or 2 games a week or one game a week.
Well, and you know, the streaming is really interesting. And as you all said earlier, you know, we're going into a whole different realm when we talk about the streaming piece.
Right.
You know, I know at Notre Dame the last year we were on Peacock, which obviously is connected to NBC, but we had some games that were strictly Peacock where, you know, people were having to pay to watch those games. And you know, and a lot, we know Notre Dame has a huge fan base, but you still had people complaining about, well, I'm not going to pay to go. I'm not going to pay to watch this stream, even if it is Notre Dame. And so again, that streaming piece gets into, so you're going to piss off a lot of people, and a lot of people aren't going to pay it.
And they'll travel in there too.
Yeah.
And Jason, I'm sorry, but one of the biggest frustrations I have every year is I'm going to try and watch, you know, the teams I cover the most. I try and watch their Saturday games, and turns out Oklahoma has a pay-per-view game.
Yep.
Against like the Mary Mother Sisters of the Poor. And I'm just like, why?
Right.
Why?
You're right. I mean,
Why?
ESPN Plus picks up certain games and stuff. That's the same thing with me. I'm going to the bar with some friends to watch the games I want to watch. It's like, also on ESPN Plus, let's see if we can figure out how to get on these TVs. And it's like, oh goodness, that's not fun.
No.
But that's also the direction that we've gone television wise. A lot of people don't have cable in some capacity. They've got YouTube TV or whatever. Yeah. So in home you can, but the other problems Coach just made mention of is people don't want to pay that extra money for stuff that they're not using on a regular basis. I totally understand why NBC would put Notre Dame games on Peacock, because it makes sense. It's theirs. Yeah, pay $5 a month extra and watch this game so we can get additional revenue on top of the ad revenue we're going to get.
On top of the NBC subscription you already pay for.
Exactly. NBC Sport. I mean, we got you got so many of them, and you're going to forget about it. Somebody mentioned it. I think James mentioned it in the chat that, there's another $5 I'm going to spend every month that I'm going to forget about in 3 months. And
no doubt. That's we talked about that on the show last week with Ty, is that how many of them do you not even know you have? That you may freaking be sitting here paying for it for a year before you even realize it, and you haven't watched it.
I think I'm paying for some of the same ones twice.
Right?
And king of that.
Right. What's funny is I have. Now, that's the only thing I don't have a problem is the streaming services, but I do have that problem with newspapers for like certain articles I read out. Yeah, I'll pay $1 for 4 months of your service. And then the next thing I know, I look up, I'm just like, wait, have I been paying for y'all for like
$15 a month, $30 a month?
Yeah, it's like, dang, I didn't even realize it's still coming out my account. Got to go cancel it. And then they make it a hassle to cancel, but I digress. The streaming service piece, if anything, the Pac-12 to save themselves is that, because I think that does add one angle that can help them to get more visibility. And Ty, you understand this. If you're trying to watch multiple games and keep up with them, if I had the ability to throw them on a laptop while watching a game on the TV and maybe have a game on a tablet, I can be able to jump game to game and be able to more so helicopter in comparison, be fully engaged. I could be fully engaged in my main team, but I can also helicopter in and look at certain plays and be like, oh, man, that's
open invitation to my house on Saturdays. You'll see that's already feasible, and we do it. We do it.
But I think that's what the Pac-12 needs to figure out, and then throw the time schedule, because as much as I enjoy Pac-12 After Dark, I like sleep too. If I want to function Sunday morning to be able to put out content.
That's not
necessary.
I
can't function very well if I don't have the time to be able to prepare.
But here's the thing.
It's the cousin of death.
You have to, at a certain point, you have to get like me, where I've understood that I don't function well when I have sleep. So me without sleep, like there's a negligible difference. Like I live in a state of non-functioning. So
yeah,
I'm glad that you made that haze your life. I mean, that's why we watch Through the Haze. That's why it's called that. It makes sense.
Hey guys, it's great though. Once I got out of coaching, I get to sleep all I want.
Right.
Oh,
I need a 4-day nap.
You're not all worried about losses. I mean, they don't bother you near as much anymore when your team loses, huh?
No.
When it's not you. Obviously, I wanted to jump in on this one real quick. talking about the fact that yes, Brett Yormark has been he may be gobbling up some more Big 12 strength. Here's the thing, Cody. How much strength is it really? I mean, is it just delaying the inevitable of them really? I mean, listen, I think that Yormark is a rock star. I think that we've talked about this at length throughout, and you and I talked about it the other day, Cody. The fact of it is, and I agree with what Laura said here. She was talking about Prime did not go to Colorado to play on Amazon. I would agree with that as well.
He's gonna be pissed.
He's got to be pissed. And here's the thing. It's got to happen. To me, I can't imagine a situation that the four corner schools that they're calling them don't go to the Big 12.
Out.
I mean,
they have to, right?
Look at it this way. Coach Prime already has a TV show on Amazon, so I'm guessing he could probably help them negotiate the deal. They probably should call him into the office since his show's on there anyway. You know, Amazon Prime, Coach Prime, it all goes together.
My God. It was
that being said, though, but you're still you're gonna get the people that love Colorado and love Coach Prime, but you're missing out on the casual. You're never gonna get that casual watcher that's gonna really. I mean, nobody's gonna subscribe for that stuff. It's just not gonna happen.
And that's the one thing I've recognized, even like making content or whatnot, is that you make your content for the people that are there in attendance at the time, and hopefully you pull in some casuals that will join into that. But you can't truly do that with college football. It's like you said, you need the casual eyeballs in order to keep the lights on at the levels that you want to. And that's when Colorado's problems has been money. So like you said, and I've said this numerous times, Colorado and Utah need to just go to the Big 12. Big 12 needs to go ahead and call Colorado and say, hey, come ride that. Let us ride the Coach Prime train. Let us make sure we go ahead and promote you guys heavily so that you can find a way to keep him long term, and don't let him bolt to another school, especially Florida State, in the next.
Because he will. If Mike Norvell doesn't win immediately, you could see this happening like tomorrow.
There's a good chance that Coach Prime will end up at Florida State, because now that he has proven that he potentially can coach, we'll find out at Colorado if he can turn. Well, he'll turn them around from 1-11. He's going to win at least 2 games. So he'll win 100% of the games more than the last coach, and he's going to look a lot better regardless.
Gentlemen, can you imagine his recruiting with Florida State?
I don't want to think about it, because that would be absurd.
With those resources?
Oh.
And somebody made the statement earlier.
Do they have those resources is the question, though, because if they're going to be this far
they have
behind,
more than Colorado.
Yeah. Even with the bad TV deal, they've got way more than Colorado. And I think
that's a good point. That's a good point.
That they don't have the TV revenue, but they still have program revenue. Just like in the graphic that went up, that the Florida State leadership showed, they bring in 70% of the eyeballs. And so because of that, they're bringing in money to the school. It's just they're not getting the TV ad revenue that they deserve, them or Clemson. But they got the resources. They kill it.
Well, and one of you guys made the statement earlier. I can't remember who it was, but somebody made the statement about everybody wants to see Coach Prime win. That's the farthest thing from the truth. All the fans want to see that. The coaches in college football do not want to see him win.
Well, and I would even raise. I think people would be surprised.
Haters.
And there's a term that's been going around the internet that I love, right? It's called hate watching, right? I think we're going to be surprised how many people hate watch Colorado, waiting for them to mess up just so that they can hit to the social media. I told y'all that it's not going to work. That's going to be a massive part of the viewership as well. Right. Look, when I say he moves,
doesn't matter why you get the eyes on it. You're gonna get the eyes on it, and if you're not looking to bring that program into the Big 12 conference immediately, and if you're Colorado, how in the world did you hire this guy, and you're really gonna sit there and want to stay in a sinking ship of the Pac-12? I can't even imagine that that's the case.
Well, I mean, that announcement came like right around the same time, so it was kind of like. Well, not really. The USC deal came last summer. So, I honestly, for Colorado, it was smart to hire and bring in Coach Prime to bring a spark and energy back to the school, because he did.
They had to do it.
He's done that. They needed.
But they want to do more than that. They want to win now, and is he going to continue to bring in those bodies if they're not on television?
Yeah, that's going to be the next question, because bringing him in after the Mel Tucker debacle helps with them trying to recover on what they're trying to do long term. And I think if you really think about it, having someone like Coach Prime is a negotiation chip that you can leverage if leveraged properly. But the problem is that the Pac-12, just because nobody has the inventory that they're going to want, they're probably going to have to go to a streaming service and find a way to get them at prime slots. Like, just as Hank mentioned, there's probably more people with Amazon Prime than they have cable, just because of the shipping on top of the television. So, I mean, the NFL still did very well on Thursday nights with Amazon Prime, but the problem's going to be when NFL season's going on.
Second tier games too. Yeah.
Right.
Damn it, I've taken a stand against Amazon Prime. It rubbed me the wrong way whenever he launched himself at the rocket and then said, "Thank you all for allowing this to be possible." And I was like, "You realize we just gave Lex Luthor the capabilities?"
Yeah, we did. We ruined
nobody's asking this question. We've just given Lex Luthor the keys to the kingdom.
Yeah, we've made the mistake.
Wow.
And so because of that, Ty, the question you have to ask ourselves is, would Amazon, outside of Amazon and Apple TV Plus, will they be able to really stream them at the prime times during the week, on the weekends? Because I know Florida State's issue, one big issue they have is playing these Thursday and Friday night games. Yeesh. Yeah, it's kind of bad because you're not prime real estate right now.
Yeah.
It's just, it is what it is. But you deserve better. You're just not prime real estate for ESPN and ABC. I'd rather Alabama versus LSU.
But kind of going back to my first question is, okay, so if you are Brett Yormark and you can try to put, because I think out of everybody, I mean, obviously Greg Sankey knows what he's doing. I think that Warren knew what was going on as well. I mean, Warren was pretty good at sticking the knife in your back for sure. But if you're able to somehow, that funny? Man, that's that.
They
that
were so against the SEC, and then boom, it's all about money.
Yeah, and then they even and then turning down the whole expansion of the playoff and all that stuff just to spite the people in the SEC and Notre Dame.
Everybody's blaming the SEC. Like when you hit social media, everybody's like, "Oh, the SEC didn't want an expanded playoff," and I'm like, "No, the SEC was like they were one of the conference that voted for it. No, they were down."
Oh yeah, and Warren went ahead and voted for it, but he had the ACC and PAC vote against it so that it couldn't go down. Which, what a knucklehead! Again, there's another one of those missteps. Completely misstepped. These guys were. I mean, that one was probably the worst one of having the handshake deal with the Big Ten, and then watching them just destroy and basically torpedo your conference. What I would say is, and something that I think it may have been James said it. I think a place for a third conference, even if it does become Conference USA or whatever. Here's the thing. A lot of these, that would be my thought, is that what you're probably going to end up seeing, and you're talking about inventory that's prime inventory like Saturdays, the Saturday inventory. The truth of it is we all want to see more college football, right? I mean, I do.
Apparently, except the NCAA is they're trying to shorten the games.
I mean, well,
yeah, we're going to get into that in a second.
The problem you run into is time to actually watch them. Now, I'll say this.
But if you're moving it to Wednesdays and Thursdays and things like that, which you've seen a lot of with these non-Power 5 programs or conferences throughout the last few years, you're seeing more games. I mean, hell, they had Tuesday night football of the last few years. I mean,
yeah, small schools, your MACs, your Sunbelts, that makes sense for them because that gives us something to do to kill time in between. But if you oversaturate the football, some casuals lose their luster for it. The best part about football is that there's certain days of the week that you're guaranteed to have them, and you look forward to those days.
Yeah,
then you do other stuff.
Thursday through Saturdays, you got the focus of college football, and it's not.
Yep.
Yeah, and
then Monday night it's NFL.
You plan around it with your buddies and your families, and it's
spouses.
All planned. If it's all week long, hell, you just said it's lackluster.
Well, after a while, it's like you'll just pick and choose which games you're going to watch at that point. Yeah. No, we want you to binge this stuff Thursday night through basically Monday night. Binge it nonstop, and then we'll give you a break.
So here's a great example. One of my guilty pleasures. I have an unhealthy obsession with sneakers. Right, I always have. It's one of my unhealthy obsessions. I have love sneakers. Yep.
Me too.
But when you get into the sneaker game, right? Like some of these Jordans, they're worth hundreds and hundreds, some of them thousands of dollars. Why? Scarcity.
Yes.
It's
Scarcity
just
is
like
key.
what makes college
That makes
football
sense, you're right.
better than college basketball? College basketball is great. What makes college football, what makes the NFL, in my opinion, better than the NBA? You have 16 games as opposed to 80.
Yeah.
The margins, and especially with college football, that's why the 4-team playoff, and I'm not going to get started on that, but why the smaller playoff format works in college football, because one of the reasons we love college football is the margins for error are smaller than any other sport not named boxing, right?
Razor thin.
Not named a combat sport where if you blink, you'll get you'll open your eyes and you'll be in the middle of the canvas, right? You're out. College football, the margins are that thin. And
James, yes.
that's the thing, man. Scarcity is king. In a weird way, lack of a product is almost the best marketing and the most powerful tool because it creates this artificial demand.
Yes. And that's
Less
the
is
key
more.
thing with what James is saying right there is that because they're trying to add more games and stuff with this NFL, and it's like, look, look at college basketball, especially NBA. NBA gets big in the finals because it's right before the summer and things are about to die. And the playoffs are so much fun with the NBA because everybody locks down.
Amazing.
But for college basketball, our excitement for college basketball is March to April. That's when we care about college basketball, mainly because we're taking a break from all the football we just watched for like the last 6 months.
And the margins are high.
Engulfed, and the margins are high. And so now the margins get so thin because of the tourney, because there's last second shots and anybody can beat each other. Same thing with the NBA playoffs. They turn up at that point because, like I said, the margins at that point gets really thin. There's a chance you're gonna be knocked out. So, yeah, you don't want to oversaturate the market. And I love football more than anybody else, but I also like to be able to get stuff done. And in being a content creator, that's probably the hardest thing is that time is almost not.
Oh, no doubt.
Sometimes,
no doubt. Oh man, it's a full time job.
I need a break.
It is a full-time job.
break is
It is.
great. Give me a break, and we
The
can
hell is a
then
break?
dive in everything.
So-
Time's different. That's what you focus on.
So when we ask, is the Big 12 a viable alternative for teams in the ACC? What say you then?
Yeah.
What is your final
Yes.
feeling on that?
Yeah, 100%. For the Pac-12 more so than the ACC, just because I think ease. Look, I've said this. You're losing a massive rivalry in the Big 12. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about this. One of the
No doubt.
biggest sporting events in
You better
the
add Utah
United
to get that
States.
holy war.
You're ahead of me, my man. You're one step ahead of me. Go get Utah. You just got BYU.
Utah, Colorado.
Go get Utah. Get that rivalry back there. Is it going to replace the Red River Shootout? No. But unless you're getting the game or the Iron Bowl, you're not going to replace the Red River Shootout. There's only 2 other games that really compete with this thing holistically.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the Notre Dame SC games, I think their viewer would probably, for like a for sure rivalry game, that'd probably be big, but like you get the point I'm trying to make. I just named you a major rivalry, and everybody on the panel is like, I don't know if that would touch. That's how big we're talking.
I
with
think the
Texas
only
so
ones
far.
that really do
I
are like
agree.
Ohio State,
Yeah.
Michigan, and honestly,
The Iron Bowl.
the Iron
Yeah,
Bowl does
honestly
obviously.
it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it. So go get Utah. Go get Utah yesterday. That's
Really
what
big
I think the
game.
Holy War.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hate there, so that one works. I mean, and that's why you're seeing. I think you've got so much of this Utah, talking crazy stuff. I mean, and even their AD's doing it to where they're talking so much of this crazy stuff. But I feel like if they want to survive moving forward, you almost have to do it. But what do you say, Jay, about this? Is it a viable alternative? I'm going to ask the ACC. I'm going to continue asking that. Is that a viable alternative?
I think once you decide on how many teams you actually want, I think 20 teams is too much. It's just a logistical nightmare. You're going to run into the problem that
you're still not going to have people
season
anymore on TV that way, for sure.
Right, exactly. You're not going to have additional games on TV, and then the problem you run into is similar to the Big Ten, where the Big Ten West was just honestly garbage, and the Big Ten
Trash.
East is all Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State.
It's
all your
trash
best teams
aside
on
from
one
those
side.
three. Yeah.
And so basically, they just beat themselves up on one side of the conference. The other side is like somebody figures it out that year. They coast their way to the top, playing the Big Ten championship, and get throttled by one of the big four, big three, basically.
I knew Illinois was a joke last year. The whole freaking season leading up to that, I knew they were a joke.
Right. And so unless Matt Rule gets Nebraska to the point where they're an actual viable opponent for everybody, no. But now I'm thinking about this. The Pac-12 and the ACC had that big alliance thing that they did back when, what was that, OU and Texas initially announced their leaving.
Well, that was with the Big Ten as well.
Yeah. And then
the Big Ten
slapped them. And then the Big Ten slapped them. I'm honestly, if they were to find a way to make themselves into a mega conference and then basically split themselves up where they have like 4 sections and then the winners of the 2 sections meet each other in a championship, that's probably the only way you're going to be able to do anything that makes sense. But that travel is going to be brutal. That cross-country travel is not what people think.
Particularly when it's one thing for the football teams to do it or even the basketball. But you start, it's like you said, when you start talking about these non-revenue sports, I mean, they're already not in school a bunch, but not that anybody cares about that. But I've come around to Colorado and Utah. I feel like Colorado, my thing with them is not just the Coach Prime part of it, but the fact that you haven't done crap since you left the Big 12. You got rid of your pipeline that was in Texas somehow. And this would actually allow you to kind of reestablish that. That's just my thought on it. I mean, obviously, the Coach Prime part, if he was to leave, that could go away again. But they were able to win before he got there. When they were in the Big 8, in the Big 12, they were a power program there. As soon as they moved over to the Pac, they've had 1 winning season in the Pac. 1.
My God.
1 winning season out of 11. It's just insanity. But as we said, folks, if you're enjoying the content, please make sure that you hit that like button. And if you're not already a subscriber, please make sure you do that. You can find Jay on Twitter at Unfair Sports. Don't forget, also Ty is there as well. He is, I gotta let it scroll across, but it is scrolling across. It's because you changed it, didn't you? Let's see.
It's just a random. It's at ATS sport _sports show. It's the worst handle in the world. I know.
No worries. Terrible. And then of course you can always find us. We are. I'm at Birdieman Dub on there, so make sure you find us on Twitter as well. Let us know what you think about a lot of this. I appreciate everybody being in here. If you would like to support the show with tips, you can always do that as well. I'm going to throw this up just for a second over the top.
Hey, Jace, you didn't mention mine.
Yeah, because you're not on Twitter. You're not into that stuff at all. I already know better.
Smart,
I already
man.
know better. The old coach doesn't mess with the old Twitter.
Your life is so much better because of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every day I hop on Twitter and I realize we have strayed further from God.
Oh, dude, you ain't lying. It's such an integral part of the problem is it is such an integral part of a content creator's job is to be on freaking Twitter. And at the same time, you're definitely going down the devil's path there. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Make sure if you would like to support us with a tip, please do so through Venmo, Cash App, or just hit that super chat heart there on the screen. You can always buy podcast merchandise you've got the web address right there over Jay. And then right above the coach, make sure you hit our Fanatics partner link and get up to 65% off everything in the store. Every time you shop there, we get a small commission, and then it's actually getting smaller, I think. But you will get up to 65% off every time. All right. Obviously, let me get back to that real quick and get that off of there. All right.
Hank, my man, you coming in and just interacting with the show, that's absolutely more than enough. Because every comment you do, that just gives us more content to continue making. That's huge.
And I always say that the free way that you can do this is to make sure that you come in, hit that like button. And, we've got a lot of viewers here tonight. I hope everybody's hitting that like button. We'd appreciate that as well. that is the biggest way that you can help a content creator, is to make sure that you're interacting with their content. You do that.
Also share.
Just because you
Share.
push the like button, everybody that's listening, just because you push the like button doesn't mean you like Jason. It means you like the content. And
Very few do, Coach. Very few do. Yeah.
Hey.
you know, I'm just giving you a hard time.
Hey,
Bro.
hit the share button. Why? Because sharing is caring, and every time y'all do that, it helps all of us. So we appreciate you, Hank, for just doing that part.
And I got banned on Facebook again for God knows why.
Wait, what? You didn't do
I don't know. I don't know. I've been banned on Facebook every day this week, and I'm like, I don't know what I have done. But
What
at least
did
if
you
I'm
do?
going to get banned, I don't know. I don't
You're
know.
bringing too much Twitter stuff over.
Here's the thing. If I'm going to get banned, I want to get banned for something. Like, they should at least let me say some heinous stuff over there and then ban me. They haven't even let me do that. They haven't even let me get to that
crazy.
stage of my day.
I do less and less Facebook all the time, and we don't have a ton of. Some of our watchers are from there, so you know, that's good. But yes, thank you so much, Adela. And Adela helps me a lot on Twitter as well. She's always sharing everything. A lot of our viewers do.
Huge.
We do have a
That's
great
huge.
audience. I mean, the one thing I'll say is we have a great audience here. You know, always there's number one, they're smart. They come in with real things that you can, you know, interact with pretty easily. And then, you know, obviously, you know, they got some love for us. So it's I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Adela, for everything on that.
But Hank, do I strike you as the type of person that needs to be banned off of Facebook? I'll tell you what I made the Around the Table Sports page and instantly log back in the next day, banned. Appeal it, next day,
I tagged
banned
you.
again.
I tagged you in a post on there today, and so I guess you didn't see that. But
I saw it. I went to try and go to it. Here's the crazy thing. It won't even let me on Facebook's website from my laptop. If I type in facebook.com, it says, hold on. Let me get off of this. It says, sorry, this content isn't available right now. I pissed someone off. I don't know what I've done, but if y'all know anybody at Facebook, hook your boy up.
That's hilarious.
That is hilarious.
Wow.
Awesome.
It's
I wish
almost
they'd
like they
boot
have
me
me
off of
hard
there.
way banned.
That's
That's
hilarious.
crazy.
That's awesome. All right. Well, all right. So obviously, again, and Coach, I mean, anything else you want to add in on this? Obviously, the realignment stuff. I mean, again, I think that we kind of talked about it at length here, but I feel like that there is a place for a third conference somewhere. But at some point, you know, I just feel like it's getting to the point where you kind of feel like it's just kind of delaying the inevitable.
No, I think all of y'all brought up some great points and some options that are out there. But again, I think, you know, like we talked about, it's going to be short term. I mean, it's like we were talking about. I think it ends up as two super conferences, and here we go. But y'all have some great thoughts.
The only thing about the two super conferences that I wonder is, what does that do to the landscape, though? I mean, does that make it go back to regional? I mean, is that how it ends up working out? Because maybe that's what you want at that point. Yeah. You know what I mean? If that's what it's going to do, if it's going to regionalize everything again, you know, maybe that helps out the entire process. The thing is that I feel like if you're talking about the ACC, you still got freaking 13 more years before you can get out of this thing. If ESPN wants to hold their feet to the fire.
Yeah.
A 20-year deal. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's
insanity.
That's ludicrous.
I feel like something tells me that there's got to be something that's going to either end up happening with Congress or with court or something, that they're going to end up taking this to court, and it's going to have to get straightened out well before 2036. I mean, there's no way that could continue. Anyway,
I want to read the contract. If I can get my hands on it, I'd be fascinated to read it.
Yeah, I've heard some people.
Same thing.
I mean, and already you've got such a disparity between them. I mean, if you're looking at I'll throw this banner up there, or the brand real quick. Just looking at obviously what you have with the annual deals. I mean, if you look at the disparity between these, obviously you've got 17 million for the ACC is their base, right? 17 million. And then you get, obviously the pack is only 20, but that's just for this next season. And then after that, I mean, it goes 31-6, then 51, then 67. And this isn't obviously adding in your that obviously doesn't add in, bowl money, NCAA tournament, any of that kind of stuff. But I mean, the lowest one there is the one that's still going to go on for the longest. Everybody else will have renewed their contract again by the time this thing's over with. It's just insane. So anyway, wow, all right, we're going to move on. We are going to move on, and I just spilled tea all over everything. Thankfully, my stuff is up off of there. So
congratulations.
Yeah, man.
I heard that ruckus.
Yeah, I dropped the tea, and it. But the good news is the computer's connected to the bottom side of the shelf, so it didn't get touched. So I'm all good. All right, the floor isn't, but I'll take care of that in a minute. All right. Next thing up, let's talk about rule changes. These I'm not quite understanding. We want to see more college football, and it sounds like they're trying to shorten everything up so that we see less. What are your guys' thoughts on this? Obviously, there's some official at the NCAA or somewhere that's been tasked with changing this rule on having a running clock, I guess, essentially. They're wanting to change the one rule that would be that the clock runs even on first downs. That would be the same as the NFL. But I've even heard on incomplete passes that was another rule thing there. What say you, Coach Roybal?
It sucks. I mean, bottom line, guys, I mean, anytime you're shortening the game, I mean, that's less time for fans to enjoy what they're setting out to do, and that's to enjoy the game of football. I mean, hell, let's just make it flag football like the Pro Bowl, and
sarcastic.
It's just getting ridiculous. I mean, I'm not for it.
Yeah, so I'll jump in here. I think it's ridiculous. And here's one of the things, right? They're under this. This is the thing that just drives me up a wall. I'm gonna tell y'all a little detail about me. One of my biggest pet peeves is bad arguments, right? Like you can have a take that might seem off the wall, but if you present it to me and I'm like, look, I disagree with you, but there's logic based on where you're coming from, I'm here for it. Like I will talk to you about it all day long. Yeah. This is the debater in me coming out. But like bad arguments drive me up a wall. They will. We actually started in the green room, coach, of my show before, talking about one such instance of bad logic, right? Where I didn't disagree with the decision they'd used. It's the way they framed it drove me up a wall. I don't want to get into that, but I say all that.
He got violent.
I say all that to say this, right? How in the world are you telling us this is about shortening games, this is about player safeties, but you're going to extend the college football season by expanding the college football playoffs, which is going to be the most hardcore, intense, grueling football of the year. You're going to up that. This isn't about player safety. This is about money. This is about money. They don't want to take away TV timeouts. If you want to shorten the game, J.D. Piquel of On3 Sports, this is not an original idea, so I have got to credit it with where I heard it. J.D. Piquel, friend of the show, great dude, great content creator. If y'all don't follow On3, JD does a fantastic job over there. You got to check him out. He was talking about this and said, take away one commercial, every commercial break. That would solve what you want, but they're not interested in that because that affects the bottom line. So what they want, they still want to be able to make hand over fist and profits. They just want less of the product to be able to sell you. This isn't about player safety. Don't feed me a sandwich and tell me it's a meatball sandwich and really it's a feces sandwich, right? Like I'm
exactly.
If they would have came out and said, "Hey, this is about money," I don't think I would have as big of an issue with this as I do, because I would have been like, I disagree with every rule you're trying to implement, but at least you're being straight. Don't tell me this is about player safety when this is so clearly about money. Get off your
It's
golden
not.
high
No, that's
horse. Like
a shit sandwich, man. Come on.
that drove me up a wall when they said that. I'm so sorry, but that just
No, you're right.
fired me up. The NCAA just drives me up a wall sometimes.
My question is, what is the NCAA still involved in any of this for? You know, I don't even understand where they don't.
They're trying to
truth of it
survive.
is-
That's
Yeah,
what it
well,
is.
They got
right?
the basketball tournament. They can continue to survive on that. I think that they've got to do something and bring in, you know, maybe a czar or something and to break away college football from it, or major college football anyway. because I
James
just
has a
don't
great
see-
comment.
Yeah,
James has got a great comment. This is 100% accurate.
Yeah.
Huh. And James, that's like them trying to tell you, oh, well, we're just concerned about your health. You're not concerned about my damn health. You're concerned about making the same amount of money for selling me less of something.
For less.
Yeah. This is what it is. That's a great
You get
example.
another box out of you know, every time that you do, you know, 20 boxes, you get another box that way.
But Jason, Coach, it goes like this. And Jay, I'm so sorry you're having to hear me say this again. Hank, I'm so sorry you're having to hear me say this again. I always go back to how NIL came to be, right? A few years ago, the NCAA finds themselves in the Supreme Court in NCAA versus Alston, and Justice Brett Kavanaugh set the NCAA in his crosshairs, and he was talking about their antitrust laws. And he said no other industry in the nation could get away with not paying their workers a fair wage off of the theory and the basis that they don't have to pay their workers a fair wage.
No, that their customers don't want them to pay their people a fair wage. That's what jumped out to me. Like, wow.
So you have the Supreme Court saying basically like, hey, we know. And the craziest thing about Brett Kavanaugh saying that, they weren't there to talk about the financial structure of the NCAA. That's not what they were there to talk about. No. Kavanaugh looked at the financial structure and basically painted a target on the NCAA's back. And look, I'm not a lawyer, but I was prepping to go to law school. So I have the legal knowledge of a competent first grader, right? So take this for what it's worth. In terms of like legal analysis, what that told me is that the Supreme Court is begging someone to open up legislation specifically worded towards the NCAA's financial structure so that they can take a look at it. Guys, 9 days later, 9 days after Kavanaugh voiced that opinion, guess what the NCAA all of a sudden figures out what to do? NIL. 9 days. So you mean to tell me that was coming down the pipe? No, they saw a target painted on their back, so they went into survival mode. Now, Coach Jason, this is the part that kills me about NIL. They didn't have equitable playing grounds. Different states were allowed to do different things, so it literally was the wild, wild west. They can't even they can't even keep themselves afloat right. It is so impressive. If the NCAA didn't exist just like organically, I don't know what they would do. I don't know what they would do. Yeah. I'm sorry to go on that long tangent and rant right there, but
it's true though.
No, you're right. You're right.
The NCAA just confuses me.
No, I'm in agreement with Ty on that. That was been my big thing when it came to NIL, was that exact same statement, is that you run up to the Supreme Court because you think they're going to save you, and it's 9-0, and they're just like, nah, your practices are really against the law. Like, there's not a single industry that would get away with this. Like, no matter how leaning towards anything that I'm leaning towards, there's no way I can deny the fact that, bro, you're breaking the law. And so,
and Justice Kavanaugh is like notoriously pro-business.
Yeah.
So for him,
that's what James just said. That's what James just said too. Here's the other thing, though, that I would say. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. No, go ahead, Jason.
No, please. I'll finish. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I guess the thing with me when it comes to these rule changes is that where's the logic? Just as Ty mentioned, what does this really do to help the product, to help player safety? Give me the examples of how this actually does it. Because the biggest problem is people will tell you that, oh, we're going to do this for your best, for the best for you. Then tell me how's the best for you, and then they stumble and can't figure out how to give you an answer. That's usually exactly how all this stuff goes. So please tell me exactly what it is that the benefits are of what you're offering me. Because as it was stated,
well, yeah, what are we
box,
speeding the game up for is the question.
Yeah,
what
does that do for us?
The benefits.
Right. I don't understand that part.
I know what it is. The point is to get more games on TV.
Right.
That's it.
They're trying
but you're not going to. It's not going to help.
Coach, you're 100% right.
I don't think so either. And here's the other.
Made a game 3 quarters. That's going to be the next thing. That's going to be the next recommendation. Hey, can we go to 3 quarters?
Why not just a half?
And why not? I mean, if that's the case, then what the hell are we doing? Why are we expanding this playoff to 12 games or 12 teams?
There you go.
What are we doing?
You know how?
If that's the case, if it was really about saving bodies, like you just said earlier, Ty, if it was really about the player safety or anything like that, we wouldn't be doing it. We would not. There would not be any of this talk about extra. Remember when they used to say that they didn't want to do a playoff at all because it was going to make these college kids miss more class, which was bullshit then too. They didn't care about it then. That you don't hear any of that crap anymore. Now that they're wanting to raise up to and go to these 12 teams. Now, if you're a fan of the game, I think that there's a lot to be said for you give more teams opportunities to win a national championship, blah, 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 blah. The truth is you probably don't. But you definitely make more money because you are going to have more football on.
And to be honest, it's actually more interesting for fans. It's kind of like the March Madness theory. And I don't want to dive too deep into the playoff piece, but there is something about that. As you guys are talking about these rules changes that just jumped to my mind, player safety. We're going to start playing college football potentially in winter in the north. How safe is that? Talk to me about how safe that truly is, because that's a problem. It's going to be freezing cold in Minnesota. They have an outdoor stadium for a reason, because they stopped playing in November. Winter's not technically until December 20th, and that's when stuff gets cold, and that's why bowl games are in the South. You don't have bowl games in the North. We're going to start playing these games that late. The playoff, I understand where they were thinking about with the expansion, because it's fun. Like I said, it's the March Madness theory. We love March Madness the first weekend because it's going to be random outputs, all kinds of crazy stuff's going to happen, but everything goes right back to the mean. If you're a 10 seed or below, down to 1, actually 10 seed down to like the 16, you ain't winning nothing past the first 2 days. It's been statistically 1 through 5. Sometimes a 6 or 7 will sneak in.
Right.
With this playoff setup, it's going to be no different. We're just going to have fun games in the beginning, but they're going to be playing that in winter. That's what
you might have a TCU come through every
blue moon. Once every 15, 20 years. It's going to always me back to the blue.
Right.
It's going to go
Well, you
right
do that
back
in the
to
NCAA tournament. You've had your Davidsons get to the Final Four and some, they get deep in the tournament. But it's rare.
And that's what the fan base it gets excited about, just like you were talking about. But at the end of the day, we're not doing it for the safety of the players. Bottom line.
And with March Madness, no 11 seed down to 16 has ever made it to the Final Four. So we know it's not going to happen, but yeah, it's not safety. I mean, we're going to get these players starting to play at the beginning of winter. I think that's the thing that's just jumped out to me on safety. Like, how are we going to handle that if they're going to figure out a way to get the Vikings to not play at home that weekend so Minnesota can play play there? That's the reason why these northern schools don't have domes. They don't play in winter. They don't have to really deal with. They get cold weather, but it's not as bad as it's going to be.
They'll end up changing that. They're going to get away from that whole. I think they like the idea of playing home games in the playoff. I don't think it lasts for very long.
But that's the best part about it.
Because like at a first thought, right? Like when you think about it, your mind instantly goes to these marquee places like Austin or like Norman or like, I mean, you think about a night playoff game. LSU,
Southern.
Death Valley. Oh
my
my
God,
gosh! I
drooling.
mean, that's bucket
Nailing.
list. That's bucket list type
BYU.
Sure it
game.
is.
You know what I
Go
mean?
out to
But like,
BYU. Go to
I
Provo.
think you're right,
It's going
Jason.
to be cold there, though.
I think we have gotten enamored with that thought, and I think it's a good thought. And I'll, Coach, we've been getting along, but this might take the Band-Aid off, so I'll rip it off quickly. I'm against college football playoff expansion just because I don't think it's going to change the status quo. I think we moved from the BCS to the college football because they were trying to change the status quo, and that status quo has just continued into the playoff. So
the rich get richer, and that's what it's exploded the pocketbooks of everybody. But that's really all it's done. The truth is that you have just as much chance to win the whole thing as you used to.
I know that's
that's
a hot take. I know that I'm one of the few, but I look, and I don't disagree. I think it's going to be good matchups. I think we're going to see some good games. But the argument of hey, this is going to just change parity, it will help. I don't think it will change parity.
No, it won't change.
I think the whole Josh Pate argument that he uses is the one of where are these games in the regular season, are they going to mean as much as they used to? Because you do think so.
I do. I think so. And this is the reason why. The only way you get a guaranteed spot is by winning your conference championship. Back before, when it came to the playoff, winning your conference championship didn't mean you were getting in. By winning your conference championship, you get in guaranteed. That, to me, is an incentive to try to make the regular season a lot more relevant. The only problem is just adding more games. And then you got, like I said, winter games. That's not – that doesn't make any sense. And there was – somebody posted up there the logic of playing games in the north in the winter is like having people play in the south in the summer. Yeah, I mean, the southern players play in the summer. I totally get that. We're also right there at the edge of summertime, and things are starting to cool down, and it gets a lot better. But yeah, it's better for fans. Fans are the other people you got to think about. I don't know why these crazy people like going to NFL games in the wintertime. In the snow and stand outside, freeze your balls off with no shirt on. I have no clue why.
I do want to catch a Bills game though. Jansen and I got to go to a Bills game.
I want to go to a Bills game in September.
Nah, I got to embrace it. I got to embrace it.
Yeah, I'm good on that.
I can't do that. Freezing fingers.
Yeah, I don't need to go to Lambeau in the middle of the winter time either. I'm good on that. I don't need all that.
Guys, we've done that in Texas, so it's you get deep in the playoffs. You get that same stuff in Texas too.
People don't realize, Coach, how cold it gets. And I know people in the chat are going to be thinking, "Oh, I'll never forget when I was real young. We had a gentleman from two guys came to look at horses, and so we'd taken them out into the middle of the field to look at the brood mares. And I mean, it's just us and that's it. I mean, as far as eyes can see, us and God, that's it out there. And so we're standing there looking at these horses, and I was out there with them. And one guy's from Boston, the other guy's from Canada, and they're standing on top of this hill, shaking. And my dad just looks at him and goes, "You're from Canada, you're from Boston, like this should be nothing to y'all." And they just looked at him and said, "Y'all's cold is different." They said it cuts through you. Like they were
because of the wind. Yeah,
granted,
there's nothing to stop.
that was like that 2009 year, Coach. I don't know if you remember 2009 in Texas. We got that huge snowstorm, not the ice, the snowstorm. Wild, yeah. But I'll never forget that. You're 100% right. It gets miserable, especially where you were. It gets bitter out there.
It does. Well, I remember playing first round of the playoffs my first year at Skyline, and we played the Longview Lobos, and they were ranked number 1 in the state, number 2 in the nation. And we played God, I'm trying to remember where we played, but you talk about cold, guys. That might have been the coldest I've ever been in my life. But wow, it does get cold.
It does get cold. Cold. I don't envy Nebraska either. My dad would tell me stories about when he got his start working in the horse industry out there. They'd tie a rope from the trailer where all the horse hands worked to the barn in the winter, because in the middle of the night when they'd have to go check the horses, you could get lost in the snow. So you had to take the rope out and back. And I just remember looking at him. And in the 3rd grade, I remember telling him, there's got to be a better way to make a living. That's not it for me. That's for the birds.
Yeah.
That's not for me.
Well, I remember, and I know we're way off topic. I got us there, but
That's all right.
I remember playing in high school. I played at Perryton High School up in the Texas Panhandle, and we drove to Muleshoe, Texas to play, but we drove through a blizzard to get there.
Don't say Muleshoe in here.
Huh?
Don't say Muleshoe in here.
Yeah,
Freaking
I
Lincoln
know.
Riley.
The home of
Y'all
your
better
most-
have won.
But I'm telling you, we drove through a blizzard to get there, and we played in a blizzard, and like you said, just freezing cold, craziness. So it gets cold down south too.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does. It does. It does. It's not the same as when I was in the military up in the Northeast, but it definitely gets.
Oh yeah, that
definitely gets
Northeast though is a little bit.
brutal, bro. Brutal.
That's a little
The
different.
first time I'd ever seen snow, and it was 2 feet of it. I was like, "What the hell is this? What is this?" So, all right, let's move on. All right,
Mule
so
shit.
we will close mule shit. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, this is where you're at with Oklahoma fans now. I mean that hate watching we were talking about earlier. Everybody's done it. If you're an OU fan, we have watched 3 for sure games that we were just praying that they lost, and they did. And it was fun. The Tulane one was great, and then, of course you got to watch that one.
Hey, I
in
was
person.
there, baby, and I loved it because I was sitting right in the middle of all the USC fans, and maybe the only one within 30 yards around me any way you went. And I was the only one yelling for Tulane, and boy, it sure felt good, especially at the end.
Yeah.
What a
No
great
love
game.
lost for the USC Trojans here. No way.
Sir. No, sir.
All right, we will close on this topic here that we're gonna pull up here. The Red River. Well, obviously, you had some talk yesterday coming out of Texas, and where they were saying that they would like to see the Red River game moved to 2:30. It sounded like like Chris Del Conte was saying basically all the time. As an Oklahoma fan, and I've been to 2:30 games at the Red River, and I've been to that early morning one. I, for one, would say let's do 2:30. I know there's some concern because that's about the time, in Dallas, that area of Dallas gets a little sketchy the later it gets. So that's something that's been a concern. But what would you guys say to that? I mean, I'll start with you on this one, Jake. Being an OU fan yourself, what are your thoughts on this one, and do you see that one moving forward?
I mean, a 2:30 game during the fair, I guess it will be cool. Personally, just night game will be fun. That will be fun for me.
But they don't want to do that because of where they're at. I mean, the Cotton Bowl, the fair at nighttime is a little sketchy, man.
I mean, I get that. I mean, but 2:30 in that heat. I mean, 11 o'clock was still questionable to me as it was starting to go up. So I'm not big on moving it down. I guess the one benefit of moving it to 2:30 is not really for the fans; it's really for the team, and that's for recruits. Gives the opportunity to get recruits down there a lot easier because then they'll have it's an easier commute for them. They can get there. They can fly in.
They can drive up in the morning, right, or drive up in the morning. Right.
And get to those games, regardless of where they're going, because you're flying into Dallas. I mean, you're going to get a direct flight from Miami. You're going to get a direct flight from Atlanta, et cetera, so on and so forth. So because of that, it's a lot easier to get there, especially after you play a Friday night football game. 11 o'clock makes it harder. So I'm totally for that on the recruiting aspect to making it 2:30 because it will help them. But outside of that, I mean, it's going to be hot regardless. I mean, I can't even carry my umbrella in there.
Yeah, because it's still what? Yeah, it's always early October.
It's North Oklahoma. It's Southern Oklahoma. It's hot, so it don't matter.
It is indeed. It is indeed. That nighttime though stuff. I mean, and I think that was something that they have talked about, and Hank's saying it here. It has caused issues in the past. I don't remember them ever having a night game for that one. Of course, I haven't been around that long, so to remember it. But
I can see that, Hank.
I didn't even know they had. I don't know that. I didn't realize they even had lights there until recently. You know what I mean? So, I don't know.
Got bowl games. They had bowl games for years.
Yeah, but in the daytime, in the daytime. Well, and I mean, obviously, the USC game with Tulane was played at night. Correct? I'm right there. It was a night game, right? Well, no, but they weren't at the Cotton Bowl.
No, they were at Jerry's World.
We were at Jerry's World.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're in Arlington then.
Yeah, you're not in that same scenario.
We can get to the game.
You're in the middle of
that's truly where they need to just move the game.
Yeah, they just don't. I mean, do you think they'd move?
They're not going to do that. That one, they're not going to do.
But I mean, and I know they won't. But I'm telling you, it would be a lot better all the way around if they did move it there.
Yeah, no, and I think that's something that players. I think it goes to home and home before they do that. I think it goes to home and home before they do that because they love the idea of the Cotton Bowl. They do not like the idea of just doing it at Jerry's World. They just don't.
And answer me this: why is that? I don't. I guess I'm not astute enough to understand.
Well, a lot of it has to do with the fair, I think, more than anything else. That you can go and kind of do your thing at the fair, and and part of it. I mean, it's. I mean, if you've been to the game, it's pretty.
It's the environment. Awesome. It's the environment around the environment is fair
amazing.
And the stadium being.
Don't they have
in the middle of it.
Contract too, where they get a revenue piece of?
I think so.
Yeah, I think they're heavily incentivized revenue-wise.
Yeah.
Like every ticket that goes through that day, I could be wrong, but I think they see a piece.
That has a lot to do. And Jerry's not giving up that thing.
That's why I'd asked. And I mean, at this point, we're opening up Pandora's box, but move the whole damn fair.
I was just fixing to say that too.
Oh, they ain't moving the fair.
Yeah, they're not moving the fair. They're not moving the fair.
No,
ironically, first college football game I ever saw was at the Cotton Bowl.
A Red River
game? The Cotton Bowl. No, it was a Nebraska. It was a Nebraska bowl game in the Cotton Bowl. Yeah, because when my dad worked in Nebraska, he became a big Huskers fan. So, yeah, he took me to that, and it was cold. Very cold, but it was very fun.
Oh.
And it also adds the component of if you go there with someone that's not a big football fan, they can go hang out at the fair while you're at the football game.
True.
People have friends that aren't football fans.
I mean, some have spouses that are that way, and then if their friend goes with them and their spouse goes with them, then the spouses disappear, and then the guys or the girls go to the game. And
you mean ex kind of friends?
Ex-friends, former friends, ex-wives,
family members, all that craziness that comes together.
No, I'm with you on it, and it's
so much.
I've been to the game 3 times in my life. It was an amazing experience for me, and part of it was that I can remember. I've been to a lot of games, and obviously the Rose Bowl would have been really cool, aside from the fact that they lost. But the experience of the Cotton Bowl for the Red River and just the way that it's set up. I mean, the fact that they split it on the 50s and all that. I mean, it's just what an amazing game. Just an amazing game. So
just a cool environment overall.
And I love the environment. You can, go out and, you get your funnel cakes, you get, I think that one of the things that Hank says the fans need less time drinking, getting ready for a game. They'll be drinking at and no way not safe. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's definitely probably moving to that 2:30 time. I don't see it necessarily going to the night because I've heard a lot of those same type of things where they're not really interested in that. As far as I think a lot of those fans would be. Yeah, it's all been a no. But I'm okay with that. I would like to go to a night. I'd like to see it be a night game. And I think, like you said, the heat. And there's nothing, the one thing about the Cotton Bowl is it's that old school stadium that's just, it's out there. It's in the sun the entire game. So it was, those hot ones. We had one that it wasn't as hot that I went to, but I remember the one that we went to, and it was pretty bad. The sun was on us the entire game. It was the 11 o'clock one. So,
Hey, Jason,
yeah.
it doesn't matter what time they play as long as this is the Hornets win it.
Oh, see, you better see. Look at what we got to do here. Boom, bye.
I had to do it to Chris earlier. He took out the Auburn flag and expeditiously he was gone.
Yeah, you got to go. You got to go. And I told, hey, see, he always now all the folks here in the comment section. How many times has he tried to tell us all that he's not a Texas fan? And I've been telling you since he came on the show that this is a Texas closet fan, a closet Texas fan.
Time out. Only against OU.
Now, see, that's even worse. That's even worse. See,
hey, honestly, I just like to rib you about it. I could care less. And I've told you this before. I've had kids that played at OU, Texas. I mean, hell, I'm a fan of where all my kids played, and so at the end of the day, that's all that was important to me.
This is the one I want to see too. Yes. Okay. OU Texas for the chip on a neutral site, and then the fans won't be an issue. I agree. I think that the only way you're going to see them be in this is one last year where they could play at Jerry's World neutral site and finish it off with a Big 12 championship. I'm not quite sure that the conference will allow that to happen, but we were making that joke last week or whatever, where it said that Xavier Worthy's going to be going down the sideline and a ref's going to tackle him. So it's going to mess it up somewhere or the other.
The chain guy is going to put the chains out and trip him.
Yeah. Drop the marker or whatever and see kind of how it goes. Yeah. Folks, again, thanks so much for showing up for this. I know we've talked about quite a few different things and everything, and I don't know that we really got anything accomplished today, but we had a good time. Anyway, we always have a good time talking ball. I'd like to thank our guests, obviously Jay Smith from Unfair Sports and Ty Hayes from Around the Table Sports. Make sure that you get over there and subscribe to their channel if you're not already a subscriber. I'm pretty sure most of these folks are subscribers to you guys, the ones that are talking anyways.
We got a big family.
I seem to see all the same folks whenever I'm watching your shows as well. So it's one of those deals. But again, and then Coach Roybal, always appreciate you being on the show as well. Folks, make sure that you hit that like button. And if you're not already a subscriber here, please make sure that you do that as well. Guys, thanks again. We will see you on